You know, in forests all across the globe, there's a secret war raging. It's not fought with armies or any weapons you can see, but the casualties, they're staggering, literally in the billions. The enemy? Well, it's these invasive pathogens, microscopic fungi and bacteria that are laying siege to our world's trees. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on this hidden battlefield.
And if you want to understand just how high the stakes are, we only need to look at one of the most devastating tree diseases in modern history, chestnut blight. This one single fungus was introduced to North America right around the turn of the 20th century, and in just a few decades it killed nearly every single American chestnut. We're talking about 4 billion trees. This wasn't just losing a tree, it was the total collapse of an entire ecosystem.
That one loss, that single devastating event, kicked off a century-long arms race. So we're going to follow the evolution of that fight, from when the enemy first showed up, through our early, kind of clumsy chemical weapons, all the way to the sophisticated strategies we're developing today. Like, get this, fighting fungi with other fungi, and even rewriting a tree's very DNA.
Okay, first things first, let's just establish the scale of this threat. See, these diseases aren't just isolated incidents. Thanks to global trade and a changing climate, new and invasive pathogens are spreading faster than ever. And that poses a massive threat to both ecological stability and, you guessed it, economic productivity.
And the economic impact? It's just immense. This number, 800 million euros, that's the estimated annual cost of just one fungal pathogen in Europe alone. Now, when you start multiplying that across dozens of other diseases worldwide, the financial stakes become absolutely staggering. This is a fight we just can't afford to lose.
So, our first major weapon in this war was chemical. Fungicides became our frontline defense. They were powerful, they were effective, but as we soon learned, they were a real double-edged sword.
Broadly speaking, these chemicals work in two ways. You've got your non-systemic, or contact fungicides. Think of these like a shield, just coating the outside of a tree to stop pathogens from ever getting in. Then you have systemic fungicides. These get absorbed and actually move through the tree's vascular system, so they can fight an infection that's already started. Both pretty powerful tools.
But, and this is a big but, they come with some serious drawbacks. First off, the enemy adapts. Pathogens evolve resistance, which makes our chemical weapons totally useless over time. And worse, these are not precision strikes. They cause a ton of collateral damage, harming beneficial microbes and the critical fungi that trees actually depend on to survive. So when you factor in all the environmental regulations and the fact that these treatments are pretty short-lived, it became obvious. We needed a much, much smarter strategy.
And this brings us to the next phase of the arms race. Okay, if brute force wasn't working, maybe we could outsmart the enemy. This led to a pretty revolutionary idea. What if we could use other living organisms as our allies? This whole strategy is known as biological control. One of the first big breakthroughs here was the discovery of something called hypovirulence. Scientists found that some strains of the chestnut blight fungus weren't lethal. And why? Because they were infected with their own virus, a mycovirus, that basically made them sick. This meant we could intentionally infect the killer fungus, disarming it and allowing the tree to recover. It's like biological warfare, but for the good guys.
Another biocontrol tactic is just simple competition. So, after a conifer tree is cut down, the fresh stump is like an open door for a deadly fungus. The solution? Get there first. Foresters literally spray a product called rot stop, which is just a suspension of a harmless fungus right onto the stump. It colonizes the wood super fast, leaving no room for the bad guy to even move in.
And the same idea is being used to fight another notorious killer, Dutch elm disease. It's managed in a lot of urban areas with a product called Dutch Trig. It's an injection, it's almost exactly like a vaccine, of a different non-pathogenic fungus. What this does is it triggers the elm's own immune defenses, basically priming it to fight off the real Dutch elm pathogen if it ever attacks. We're essentially training the tree to defend itself.
Biological controls were a huge leap forward for sure, but they still involved reacting to a threat. So the next frontier had to be proactive. What if, instead of just defending the tree, we could redesign it to be permanently resistant, from the inside out? Well, welcome to the world of genetic engineering.
So let's go back to the American chestnut. Scientists figured out exactly how the blight kills the tree. The fungus pumps out this stuff called oxalic acid, and that just destroys the tree's cells. But they also found a solution in a really unlikely place: wheat. Turns out wheat has a gene that produces an enzyme that neutralizes that acid. So, using genetic engineering, researchers took that one single gene from wheat and popped it into the American chestnut's DNA. The result? A tree that looks and acts just like a native chestnut, but now it carries its own built-in shield against the blight.
Now, this technology is incredibly powerful, right? But it also brings up a profound question that scientists, conservationists, and the public are all still debating. While this new chestnut could restore a lost giant to our forests, the whole idea of releasing a genetically modified organism into a wild ecosystem, well, it raises some really big ecological questions that we have to consider carefully.
So, from engineering the tree itself, the very latest research is now looking at an even more intricate level of defense, harnessing a hidden army of allies that already live inside every single tree on the planet.
They're called endophytes. These are fungi and bacteria that live their entire lives inside the leaves, stems, and roots of plants without causing any harm. In fact, what we're now discovering is that this internal microbiome is absolutely essential for a tree's health and its survival.
So how do they help? Well, in a bunch of amazing ways. Some endophytes act like personal trainers, just improving the tree's overall health and growth, making it tougher against attack. Others are more like bodyguards. They actively compete with pathogens for space, or even produce chemical compounds that kill invaders. And some, a lot like that Dutch trig vaccine we talked about, can prime the tree's own immune system, keeping it on high alert. The potential here is just immense, to find and deploy the perfect, personalized little army for every tree.
So, after this incredible journey through the arms race, what have we learned? I think we've learned that there is no single silver bullet. Victory in this war isn't going to come from one superweapon, but from an intelligent, unified strategy. This modern philosophy is called Integrated Pest Management, or IPM. It's a holistic approach that moves away from just reacting to outbreaks. Instead, it focuses on the long-term health of the forest by combining multiple tactics in a way that is both super effective and environmentally responsible. And ultimately, the modern forester has an entire toolbox at their disposal. It combines smart forest management, like thinning stands, with the surgical use of chemicals. And of course, it features all the advanced strategies we've just explored: biological controls, genetically resistant trees, and enhancing the tree's own internal army of endophytes. Which brings us to a final, really crucial question. This war for our forests, it is far from over. As new threats emerge on the tide of global trade, and as climate change stresses our ecosystems in ways we can't even predict, this arms race will continue. The toolbox we have today is impressive, no doubt, but protecting the forests of tomorrow is going to demand new levels of creativity, new discoveries, and tools we haven't even imagined yet.